Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd that's messing around trying to figure out how GoToWebinar is going to behave today. And we think we have it, so here we are at the PracticeMaster Virtual User Group meeting for August 2017. We are calling this our Eclipse episode. Of course, we all know the eclipse was last week, but the eclipse our Eclipse episode, so we're having our Eclipse episode today. And today we are talking about printer settings and more printer settings, because today is one of those rare instances where we have not two, but just one topic. We're going to talk all about printer settings and how to get to the right places to control the right things with regard to printers. What more could you want? And so, without further ado, I'm going to press, hopefully, all the right buttons and get to a point where we are in PracticeMaster. Let's see here. Is this the right one? Nope, this one. And we got to go to PracticeMaster. We probably want to get out of this. And boy, I'm in trouble here. I've failed to properly close everything up. And so now what we're going to do is pop over to this PracticeMaster for our sample system. And we'll let Mary Jo start and talk about printer settings.
Okay. So the first thing that we are going to talk about is where to go to set the printer settings. So of course you can do that on the fly as you're printing something, but we're going to go into where we can set our defaults for each printer. So that is under the Setups tab in PracticeMaster. And then we have a print setup icon. And then we're going to click on that. And we have a couple of different things here that we can set up for our print settings. First off, we have to choose which printer we're setting the settings for, and each printer has its own settings. So if you have multiple printers that you're printing to, you would have to come in and set those settings for each printer that you're printing to. We have two different things here that we can do. Go to our page setup and our advanced print setting, print features. I can talk today. And then we also have our setup now. Over here, this setup is taking me into whatever printer I have displayed, its settings that are inherent for itself. So it's not the software settings. This is looking at the print setup for the Dell 3115. And I can change the orientation and what kind of paper and things. This is regarding the printer that I'm printing on. Again, paper quality. This would be like if I were printing from Word or anything else. These are those printer settings on that printer. Versus
now, do you really want to go in there?
Well, you may want to for certain things, but for the software setup that we want to default from things that are printing from PracticeMaster, we want to set those settings over here.
Because there could be things that appear here and also appear there. Which one would you use then?
The default settings here in the software is what I want to print from whatever settings I want for PracticeMaster. Paul?
I'm laughing because I got the bad eye. Nobody can see that I got the bad eye,
I'm
but I
just
got
like,
the
if
bad
you're going to
eye.
ask a question, why don't you just answer the question?
Because then we wouldn't have this playful banter.
No, that's true. And
we
would like to come to our, we don't have boring bugs. We
have exciting bugs.
Okay. So we're just real people here, you know.
So the bottom line is, if I can answer my own question, is that you don't really want to go in here to the printer settings and set stuff in there because it doesn't stick.
Yeah. And
so if there's something that you can set through the settings that are in the software, you know, other than that setup button on the right and anywhere else, then they will stick. Now, I want to make something perfectly clear right now, is that if you go in and you're going to print a report and you go in to print it and you get into the point where you can go into setup here and get into the same settings, those won't stick. So if you get in here on the way to a report, great, switch it to the landscape. It will continue to default to portrait if that's what you set up back in that other place. So these settings that you make on the fly, they don't stay around. And so that's not the place to go to set something that you want to stick forever. This is here. So I think I'm supposed to go into here and talk about margins. That's what you get in here. When you go into page setup, what you're really getting into is left, right, top, and bottom margin for both portrait and landscape, because you may have different margins that you want set for landscape than you do for portrait. Maybe you want, I don't know, whatever. You can have different margins. And you also have something called a printer offset adjustment. Now, most of the time, this is used for printing checks. So it's very appropriate to set the offset, maybe to nudge it over just a little bit to the right by putting up like a 0.1 on the left adjustment, offset adjustment. But usually that's for a check, because most of the time you really just want to set your margins. It's kind of the same as setting a margin. If we have a left margin of 0.5 and a left printer adjustment of 0.2, then we effectively have a left margin of 0.7. Okay, so that's what that is. This is margins, and that's printer offset for left and right. Now we also have these things here: font selection, automatic or manual. If it's automatic, what font do you want to use? If it's manual, what font do you want to use and what size, and only when the reports are this width? Gets very kind of wonky. Is that a word? It gets kind of wonky when you mess around with these things. So our recommendation to you is not to use manual, because when you choose manual, this grays out and these become active. But then you have to choose different fonts at different sizes for different width reports. And it can really get kind of strange when you make these changes here. Our recommendation is use automatic, and then if you do want a different font, by all means select a different font here. Maybe you want Times New Roman, maybe you want Arial Narrow, it doesn't matter. Select your font and then let the computer figure out how to make it big or small. Okay. Now, in a minute, Mary Jo or I, whoever draws the short straw when we get to that point, will explain a better way, we think, to make that happen. So our recommendation, use automatic, select the font, leave the manual part alone.
So the advanced features, advanced printing features, give us a few more options in here. We can allow for variable font sizes and styles. If you have variable fonts and different things, we can allow that. You can use commas in the numeric fields. You can allow the gray text and lines to show up. You even can preview negative numbers in red. A lot of people don't know about this one, but you can actually preview them on your screen in red. Even if you don't have a color printer, you can be in preview mode and you can show those. If you do have a color printer and you want those to print, there is a box here to print those negative numbers in red, so that way then those will show up on your report that you print. You can optimize to print to file, and that kind of goes in hand with the embedded fonts and PDF files. And I don't know, Paul, if you want to talk a little more about that or go into detail on that. It's
the difference between one version of PDF and another version of PDF is whether fonts can get embedded. Mm-hmm. We typically recommend that you not embed fonts, because some people can't read those PDF files in the right way, and so the things will look a little weird. The bottom line is, if you select a font that everybody has, like Arial or Times New Roman or any font that will come up on any Apple, Macintosh, or Windows computer, then you know that you don't need to worry about embedding fonts, and probably don't need to worry too much about optimizing for print to file. So I would say that you can leave embed fonts in PDF files checked, but you probably are going to want to select a font that doesn't need to be embedded anyways, like Arial or Times New Roman. And then Mary Jo loves to talk about removing formatting and save to Excel.
Yeah, when you remove your formatting and save it to Excel, we all know how well that the programs print to Excel. So that is something you can remove the formatting. You still are going to have cleanup. It's not going to throw it out into a pretty Excel report like we all want, but it will get the data out there. It can be manipulated. You can remove columns and all of that. It is possible. That may make it a little bit easier. But it's still good,
But not perfect.
But definitely not. The footer, a lot of people didn't know you can turn the footer off. You don't have to print those user initials or that rule line. There's a horizontal line at the bottom of all the reports. You can just turn that footer off by unchecking that. That will no longer print that at the bottom of your reports. You can change the font size adjustment by percent. Here is a way that you can go ahead and raise or lower your font size here by percentage, and that will fit on the page a little bit better.
So if somebody needs the font to be a little bit bigger, just make it 110, make it 115, kind of play with it. That keys into the program's desire to automatically manage the font size anyways. When you get into that manual management of the font size, it can get a little weird. If you leave it on automatic and instead change by percentage how much bigger you want it or how much smaller you want it, that can work a lot better.
And then you also have the adjustments to how much you want that gray shade density to be in the gray text and line display. You can move this bar up or down to make that lighter or darker. So we'll get out of that. And so we've talked about both of those. Anything
Let's talk
else
about control panel.
Well, one other thing that I want to note in here in PracticeMaster is when we print report writer reports out of here that are in column formats or whatever, the more, how do I want to say, the longer the width of all the fields that are taking up across that whole report determines how small or large that print is going to be. So if I have just like 3 columns and I'm only taking up, a portion of that total width of the paper, it's going to print larger. But if I've got columns that are taking up that whole width, I'm going to have tiny little print because it's all based on that. And if you don't know much about Report Writer and have other questions on that, let me know. But a lot of times people will print a report out of Report Writer and say it's so small because they've got so many fields across and it's trying to fit all those on, even in landscape, and it just makes it smaller and smaller and smaller.
And usually what happens is they've got a whole bunch of fields, or maybe not even a whole bunch, and a lot of space between one field and the next field. Because what happens, it's a little weird. The report writer is, a little ancient. And so when you insert a field, let's actually just go in there real quick. When you insert a field into the image layout, I'll just pull up this daily timer log and just, and edit it real quick. And so when you get over here to the image layout, how wide these fields are determines, whatever is at the far most right determines how wide your page is. And so if that happens to be 256 characters worth of stuff, then it's going to be real small because your page is really only wide enough to fit maybe 80 or 100 or 120, somewhere around there characters without it getting too small. Now, one thing people do is they'll insert a field like this and not notice that it defaulted to 90 characters. And so one of the things that
and
you have
that's
to
not
watch
characters too, Paul. That's the other thing that's weird in here. You think that field width is how many characters wide it is, but that's not really true.
Well,
it's sort of true, but it's not. It
takes us back to the time when we had Selectric typewriters and we had fixed width printers. And so a Courier 10 meant 10 characters would fit within an inch. Is that what it meant? Something like that. And so it was before the age of proportionally spaced fonts where an I has less width than a capital O. And now we have proportionally spaced fonts. So 35 means 35 characters wide at 10 pitch, fixed pitch font. So it's weird. It is a
that brings
set
me back to typing
amount.
when you had
really
like 10 and the other you try
10 and 12. It's exactly that. So you may insert a field that is 50 characters wide, will hold 50 characters, and so this will default to 50 character field width, and you'll bring it down to 30, and that's still too big. You still have more room. So keep that in mind. Manage this. Manage how wide they are, because nothing you can do in the other places that Mary Jo and I showed you will have anything to do with this if you've got too wide of a line. Too wide of a line, it's just going to automatically try and bring it down to a font size that'll fit everything on that line, even though you've made it too wide.
And take advantage of wrap text. I mean, you can definitely wrap the text in a description if you're building a report to print better. So we've got right now that it is just
right there it is.
Yeah, you just want to wrap it. And so you can wrap that description and it'll carry it down so you're not taking up so much across, and it'll still leave your report font size bigger. Now, I know that probably a lot of this of what Paul and I are talking about right now is a little bit deeper than maybe what you normally do, because we don't have a lot of our clients that actually use Report Writer.
Or write their own reports.
To write their own reports. We usually help with that, or we have some that do have people on site that can do that for them. but the average user is going in and just printing a report. They're not building a report.
Right.
So if that's something we're talking and you're going, what are they talking about?
Then
Don't worry about it.
Right.
It's something that we can work with. If you're getting a report, though, that's consistently teeny tiny and you're like, how can I make this bigger? Give us a call. We can take a look at it and we can see if that's the problem.
But be aware that it's not in here. It's over in how wide that line
Correct.
is in the image layout.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to go out and show you how you can create a duplicate printer on your machine. So we're going to have the same printer, but we can set up different parameters for that printer.
So let me set this up for you. Let's say that if you only want to change from portrait to landscape and you do it every once in a while, then when you're going into that report that you want to print landscape, you hit the setup button, you change it to landscape, you're done. But to do that, you've got to hit the setup button. Then I think you hit the print. Which one is it? You have to hit another button, and then you have to hit landscape. Okay, and you have to drill down. It takes a little while to do. So even if you only have one thing that's different, or especially if you have multiple things that are different, what you do is you set up a separate printer. I have, for the ease of speed, and because this is probably not something you're going to do anyways, if you simply set up an identical printer and give it a different name, this is our regular printer. I didn't give it a different name, but we'd call this like 3115 CN landscape, for instance, if that's what we were going to use it for. Or if it were some settings that you had, maybe 5 different settings that you wanted to make every time you print the detail AR report, you might call it 3115 CN. That's the kind of printer it is. Detail AR. Say again? Oh, thank you. You were in PracticeMaster. So, okay, whatever. And then I'm talking about tabs reports. But nonetheless, give it a name that tells you what it's for. And then once you've done that, and this is probably not something you're going to do. It involves adding a printer, creating a duplicate printer that points to the same printer. So you have 2 definitions that point to the same printer. It's probably something your IT guy's going to do. So call that person up, ask him or her to help you get this separate printer set up. And when you've got it set up, come back into print setup and go to each of the printers. Here's one, here's the other, and make those settings here in the main setup right there, so that every time you use one printer, you'll get one set of settings, and every time you use the other printer, you'll get another set of settings. It's as easy as that. It's as easy as duplicating the printer and then setting this group of settings over here and this other group of settings over here, and then simply switching between them when you go to print. So when you go to print whatever report it is that you're going to print differently, all you have to do is choose a different printer. Once you get to the point where you tell it what you want to print. At that point, you just say, oh, no, use this other printer, and all those settings, margins, landscape, whatever it is that you've changed, will automatically come into play. Now, like I said, if it's just that maybe 2 times a month you use landscape instead of portrait, and 4 dozen other times that month you use portrait, set it up for portrait in your defaults, and those 2 times just go into on the fly and change those. But if it's something that you use frequently, or something that has multiple different settings, or a combination of the 2, then it makes more sense to set up a separate printer and be done with it. And that's that. That is pretty much maybe even more than you'd ever want to know about how to set up printers in PracticeMaster. I will tell you that in September, we will be talking about the search documents screen in PracticeMaster, and how to make your documents searchable, meaning how to make sure that the PDFs that you have are readable. We'll give you more information on that next month in the September PracticeMaster VUG. And I do also want to point out that if you go to www.attorneycomputersystems.com, and you'll notice that systems has an S on the end of it, you will find all of our recorded content. This virtual user group meeting, all of them that we've ever done. We also have our Coffee Pot webinars and our eBite video series and our Paul and Mary Jo show. So the thing to do is come in here and either hover over the word videos, or better yet, click on the word videos and go to the separate page. And you will find information on all of our VUGs plus our Coffee Pot webinars. These are our live events. You're currently in our PracticeMaster virtual user group meeting, or VUG. We also have one for tabs and one for World Docs. And I also give a webinar each month that we call our Coffee Pot webinar, where we take a an add-on product or a secondary product that enhances PracticeMaster or Tabs or World Docs, and talk about it. These are live. We also have 2 pre-recorded video titles. We have Mary Jo's eBites video series, where she'll take a very short topic, something cool we thought you might want to know about that we can describe in 2 or 3 minutes, and she will take 2 or 3 minutes to describe it. She does 1 each month for Tabs, 1 for PracticeMaster, and 1 for World Docs. And then for those more broad topics, we have the Paul and Mary Jo Show, where I or Mary Jo will take a broader topic and spend 10 or 15 or sometimes even 20 minutes going into a deep dive of everything that has to do with that and trying to cover all our bases and make sure that we get everything laid out for you. So we have those 2 titles as well. If you click on one, let's say the PracticeMaster Virtual User Group Meeting, you'll find that we have a very brief description. Nope, you'll find that we've got a problem with our website. We'll click on a different one. We have a very brief, we'll go into the Tabs one. Hope that one works. I have a feeling that Patty's making the change right now to put the next month's title out there. You'll have a very brief description of what the title is about. You'll have information on the next event. This is our September Tabs 3 Virtual User Group Meeting and what it's about. You'll find 2 links. They are identical links. They'll both take you to the same page, but we have it there twice to get in to register. And then as you scroll down, you will find pre-recorded versions of everything we've done in the past. Now, this is the Tabs 3 Virtual User Group Meeting that we did an hour ago, and so it's currently in post-production. But as you scroll down further, you'll find these videos that you can click on and watch. And so you have everything we've ever done in all of our live events, Tabs, PracticeMaster, World Docs, Virtual User Group Meetings, Coffee Pot webinars, plus the 2 that we record in a studio setting every month as well, the eBites video series and the Paul and Mary Jo Show. And if you don't want to scroll through them or browse through them, you can just type something like, maybe you're looking for email statements, and so you type what it is that you're looking for, and you either go based off the quick menu or you hit enter and get a more detailed description, find what you want, click on it, and you are watching a video. So that's it for today. Everybody have a good rest of the day, rest of the week, and I guess we're almost out of the month too, so rest of the month. We'll see you in September when we talk about searching documents and making documents searchable in PracticeMaster. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.